Most Americans and Canadians want their government to recognize a Palestinian state, and a firm majority want a ceasefire now. That's according to a new poll released today from the Angus Reid Institute. Pause to read the methodology. Both countries refused to immediately recognize a Palestinian state after Norway, Spain, and Ireland all did so. It's just another example of the gulf that exists between public sentiment and government decision-making when it comes to what a UN expert has called a genocide in Gaza. Here's what else the poll tells us. In Canada, public sympathies have shifted towards the Palestinians over the last 8 months. See, at the outset of the violence in November, just 18% of Canadians said they sympathized more with the Palestinians, while 28% said they sympathized more with the Israelis, and 31% said they felt for both sides. But 8 months on, 28% of Canadians sympathize more with Palestinians, a 10% increase, while 25% sympathize more with Israel, and 27% still sit in the middle. In the US, the strongest sympathy is still with the Israelis at 31%, but it dropped slightly over the last 8 months, while sympathy for Palestinians went up from 13 to 19%. There's also a really big generational divide happening here. In both Canada and the US, respondents aged 18 to 34 were more likely to say they sympathize with the Palestinians than any other response. But as you can see, attitudes shift by age group. Finally, as I mentioned at the start of the video, 57% of Canadians and 58% of Americans want their government to recognize a Palestinian state, while 63% of Canadians and 57% of Americans want some form of ceasefire now. I want to take a second here to acknowledge it can feel antiseptic to see the response to atrocities and human suffering boiled down to cold, hard numbers like this. Hearing about percentages and margins of errors in between headlines that an Israeli airstrike on a UN school in Gaza killed 39 people. But I think it's really important to know that when you feel like you're screaming into a void, you aren't. Polling shows that the tide is shifting, that awareness, education, speaking out is working. So don't give up hope, because you are making a difference. What do you think of all this?